The Natural Health Show with one of New England's leading holistic specialists, Mark Mincola. Call Mark at 617-822-1969 on 96.9 Boston Talks.
Greetings and welcome home, Natural Health Nation. Great to have you all on board. And hey, rumor has it we may be getting a little phone call from Bernie Siegel before the end of the night, so stay tuned for that possibility. And, we are at that season, that time of year where the cold and the darkness are going to ultimately prevail here. And this is the time of year where we have to be very extra careful about taking good care of ourselves. It is what we might call superbug season. And, Nobel Prize-winning Scottish biologist Alexander Fleming first discovered antibiotics in 1928. He, at the time, warned the world against their overuse. Now, here we are, 75, 80 years later, after Fleming's warnings, we currently spend over $10 billion annually on antibiotics in this country, and perhaps we are contributing to our own eventual peril in that regard. The bacterial superstrain, dubbed the New Delhi metallo-beta-lactamase 1, or the NDM1 superbug, was first discovered in the year 2008 and has to date shown resistance to 15 of our most high-powered antibiotics. And in March of this past year, CNN reported that carbapenem-resistant Klebsiella pneumonia, or CRKP superbug, was now in all 50 states. And previous outbreaks have shown a 35% death rate in hospital environments. So, we're talking about an interesting time in our history where superbugs are now starting to come on the scene. And, of course, there is grave concern and grave warning about many of these super strains of bacteria. And also, in March of this past year, 2011, the Associated Press reports said that NDM1 bacterial strains were showing up in American Army hospitals in Afghanistan. So the World Health Organization has now declared antibiotic superbugs, antibiotic-resistant superbugs, a worldwide threat. We are there. We don't have to wait. The future is now, unfortunately, in this particular regard. There are other strains besides the NDM1. The NDM1, first of all came about in 2008 in the Middle East and ravaged many folks through the Middle East and through parts of Europe and even in the Great Britain area. But there have been very, very few successful antibiotics. As we said, in fact, 15 different strains were tested against the NDM1 superbug. And again, as we said, none of them were proven effective at all. So we have certainly run the course as far as trying to find an effective antibiotic strain that can kill the NDM1. But methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, or MRSA, MRSA superbug, is also now said to kill 48,000 American hospital patients each year. So we've got NDM1, we've got MRSA, we've got VRSA as well, and vancomycin-resistant Enterococcus, VRE. We've got all kinds of new antibiotic-resistant strains of superbug bacteria that loom very large on the horizon. And this is the time of year that I get particularly worried because, there was a time then we'd only be a little bit concerned perhaps about the very elderly and the very young. I think those days are gone. I think that anybody who remembers that bug that went around I guess it was probably January, February, March, toward the middle and the end of winter, I know that a lot of folks in my world were hit pretty heavily. In fact, I always tell everybody that in the past 30 years, I've not missed but one day of work due to illness, and it was because of some bug that hit back last February. So that was a mutated bug of sorts. And again, I think these mutated bugs that are hitting harder, I just had somebody in my office this past week who was hit with that same February bug last year, who recovered partially and is still fighting symptoms of what you might call kind of bronchial inflammation and a chronic cough that just never went away. And again, I think that our immune systems are trying desperately to figure out what to do about these super strains. And I think that the world of medicine is trying to do the very same thing. there's no question about it that we are in big trouble here. It is believed that we're about to see superbacterial strains that are indeed resistant to virtually all known medicinal antibiotics. And in September of this year, Resistance Map, if you want to just check that out, if you want to do some searching on the internet, there's an interesting site called Resistance Map. It was launched by the Extending the Cure Research Project people, and it's an incredible internet map that allows searchers to log on and to track the latest spread of superbugs globally. Again, it's called Resistance Map. So when you get on there, you can see what's happening in the world of superbugs and where things are at their worst and where things are really of worst concern. Example, one of the things that the data shows in Western Europe, of course, they found that they're doing a far better job than the U.S. at controlling certain super strains of microbes. They found that 52% of all staph bacteria samples currently collected in the United States are antibiotic resistant. 52% of all staph bacteria samples, compared to 1% in Sweden. 1%. And the U.S. has the current highest rate of VRE, vancomycin-resistant enterococcus. Here in the United States, the South has a significantly higher rate of germ resistance than the West or Northeast. So things are worse in the American South as far as bacterial resistance, as far as superbugs. And, I think that we, unfortunately, at this point in time, just haven't found any answers as far as the world of orthodox medicine and antibiotics. But there is another side to that story. First of all, it's very obvious that the world of orthodox medicine is searching high and low, even as we speak, for viable antibiotics that are representative of new strains that can help us kind of get a hold on some of these evolving super strains of bacteria. They also have acknowledged, the world of science at large has acknowledged that this may be one of those remarkable openings, if you will, for the call to natural medicine, because there are, in fact, natural medicines that are able to do a number on antibiotics based on some remarkable new research that confirms the fact that do not have that yield to resistance. In other words, they kill bacteria without the benefit of bacteria developing resistance, like is happening with antibiotics, unfortunately. So is it possible that what orthodox medicine can no longer do, natural medicine can? And again, according to a lot of this interesting research, it seems to be the case. In April of 2011, this past year, Portuguese researchers from the University of Beira reported that coriander oil at 1.6% solution, I'm going to say that again, the spice coriander oil at a 1.6% solution dilution was effective at killing 12 lethal strains of superbacteria, including E. coli, Salmonella, and MRSA. So again, the powerful antibiotic methicillin couldn't kill the super staph bacteria, but the coriander oil could. So this is a very interesting time. There's many new natural medicines now that are making it on the scene. We, of course, are going to talk about coriander oil a little bit more. We're going to talk about oregano oil, which we've talked about many times before. And, of course, Dr. Harry Preuss of Georgetown University Medical School reported that the antioxidant terpene, T-E-R-P-E-N-E, such as turpentine, carvacrol is the terpene, carvacrol, found in oregano oil, that the researchers at Georgetown University Medical School found killed staph E. coli as effectively as penicillin, streptomycin, and vancomycin without side effects. More importantly, folks, superbugs cannot develop resistance to the carvacrol. So similarly, with coriander, oregano oil is effective at killing bacteria without the concern about superbug resistance, rather. Hey, when we come back from these messages, we're going to talk with you about a very interesting topic and a very timely topic, superbugs and the natural medicines that just might fight them. Be right back.
Now back to the Natural Health Show, sponsored by Good Health Natural Foods in Quincy and Hanover.
In Boston and New England, 617-822-1969. Verizon Wireless free call pound 969. Let's get to a couple calls here. And let's get to Charlie in West Roxbury. Welcome to, West Newbury. Sorry about that. Welcome to 96.9 Boston Talk Show, the Natural Health Show.
How are you, Mark?
Terrific. How are you?
Good, thanks. I'm calling about gout. I had an attack of gout a few weeks ago.
Yep.
And some people, I take celery seed capsules, which did relieve the pain, but I just want to get to the point, why am I getting it, and what's the best thing? What is your opinion on it?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, a lot of those uric acid crystals that you're building up are largely from probably what they call nitrogen deamination. You know, when you overdo a lot of animal proteins, even the harmless ones can be problems. So chicken, turkey, and fish can also be problems. But generally speaking, if you could take a little bit more precaution to avoiding animal fats in the diet, increasing the veggies, increasing the fruits, the whole grain products, maybe even bringing in some vegetarian protein options like beans, and cutting down on some of the real heavier animal fats, there'd be a big change there. Also, I recommend, you could get yourself some Bryonia, 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 which is bitter hops in a homeopathic version. I'd get Bryonia 6X, take 3 pellets into the tongue 3 times a day. I'd also consider doing some bromelain, Bromelain, which is a protease. It's an anti-inflammatory protein enzyme that comes from pineapple. And you want to get like 500 milligram caps. Take one of those mid-morning, one mid-afternoon. And, also a lot of folks really like if you get the black cherry concentrate, there's a lot of the health food stores out there that carry black cherry concentrate, and just take an ounce or 2 a day. It doesn't take much. So those 3 things will knock it right out. But again, great question, because it's all about preventing it and getting to the root of it. Your body's not having a real easy time breaking down animal proteins. Our bodies aren't perfect, and they have ways of speaking to us through their symptomatologies. So I would cut back on those animal proteins.
Okay, so that's what you think it is. Mostly that, nothing to do with stress or anything like that.
Well, I'll tell you what. Here's what I'd say about stress. Stress makes everything worse.
Yeah.
It really sabotages our chemistry. I always say we have 2 chemistries. We have efficiency and emergency. And wherever the twain shall meet. If your body's getting emergency messages or fight or flight or stress messages, you give up your efficiency, and there's no consistent, reliable, efficient chemistry that's exhibited when you're in a chronic stress kind of chemistry mode. So stress makes everything worse. So you're absolutely right about it from the perspective of exacerbation and really keeping the lid on your progress and your recovery. But it's not the root cause.
Right. Okay. I appreciate it, Mark.
Pleasure. Good luck with that. Let's get to Gregory in Roxbury. Welcome to 96.9 Boston Talk Show and the Natural Health Show.
Hi, how you doing?
Terrific. How are you?
I wanted to know when sprouting grains, if all of the carbohydrates convert to protein.
No, they don't. Sprouting grains is actually a really good way to maximize the yield of protein, to alkalize those grains a little bit as well, and to really increase the oxygenation process of getting your nutrition to help oxygenate and alkalize you. But no, it's not going to convert all those units, all those carbohydrates into proteins. It will not do that. The other thing is, when you sprout anything, there's a short window of time before that sprouting process breaks down. Now, sprouting includes a lot of hydrophilic buildup, a lot of water. You sprout a grain and you germinate it, and it suddenly is producing and yielding a higher concentration of water. Well, water is a great thing for many different reasons, and it's true in this case as well. But the problem there is these grains will break down. These sprouted grains will break down. So there's a very short window of time where they're extremely efficient and helpful and good for you, so to speak. And then suddenly after that short window of time passes, they become a little bit more problematic from the perspective of fermentation in the body. They become kind of moldy real quick.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
So you're very welcome. So you want to eat your sprouted products real quickly. Don't let them sit around. A lot of folks will sprout grains or sprout different various foods, and they'll keep them around in the fridge for 3, 4, 5 days. Can't really do that. I would say after 2 days, you're done. So sprout small amounts, pretty much only what you're going to eat, and beyond what you're going to eat, probably wise not to store it for more than 2 days. So those sprouted grains break down, they decompose pretty easily. Again, when something is in a shell or when it's in its hard exterior, it's protected from breakdown. Once it starts to sprout, it's more susceptible to oxygenation, breakdown, etc. So they do become moldy real easily. Don't want that to happen. But thanks for calling. Let's get on to Sarah, I think it is, in Carr. Welcome to 96.9 Boston Talk Show and the Natural Health Show.
Hi, thank you. I just had a quick question. For several, probably the last 6 or 7 months, I've been craving berry like I've never, like I can't even explain it. I drink so much milk. I eat tons of cheese and yogurt, and it's like I can't get enough. And I'm trying to figure out why I am just always craving dairy. I drink about probably a half a gallon of milk a day.
Well, that's probably paradoxically the very reason, Sarah, why you're craving it is because when you overuse something, you tend to trigger an immune globulin sensitivity to it. I always tell people there's 3 different kinds of approaches to food. Number 1, you have kind of a green light, where foods are very easy for your body to recognize, to digest, and to efficiently utilize. You also get a red light, and those are allergens. You can never recognize them or make good use of them. Stay away from them. Then there's that curious third group of foods that are yellow light, caution foods, because if you overdo them, then they become like allergies, and I call those intolerances. Okay. So if that happens, you'll tend to drive up cravings. So if you take a potentially allergenic food, like one of the 8 primary allergen foods, which dairy is certainly one of those, and you overconsume it, you will sometimes drive yourself into an inflammatory overproduction of immune globulin G or immune globulin E, probably more the G in this case. And that tends to drive up a lot of that craving. So it's kind of part of the allergenic response. People think allergies only produce headaches. They only produce, rashes and things like that. But they also produce cravings. So that's likely what you're dealing with.
So now, if I were to cut back on the dairy, like really substantially, do you think that over time those cravings would subside? Yeah,
I would just about guarantee it. I'd tell you that if you stay away from it for 10 days, kind of get clear from it, and then bring it back at only maybe 2 or 3 servings a week. You have a little bit of dairy on a Monday, a Wednesday, or Friday, you'd probably be fine.
Now, another quick question as far as milk goes. I mean, I kind of hear from both sides that, that milk is really healthy and that you should be drinking like 3 glasses of it a day. But then I've heard that a lot of those studies that say that milk is really good for you, that those studies are actually funded by the dairy companies. So I wonder, as far as milk goes, how healthy is it,
Well, what do we say? There's 3 sides to every story, yours, mine, and the truth, something like that. So this is kind of one of those scenarios. If you want to look at the other side of the ledger on the dairy story, you want to go to PCRM, which is Physicians Concerned for Responsible Medicine. It's a lobby of physicians around the country, and about 3,000 physicians that belong to it. And the PCRM group is a firm believer that the milk myth should have never been perpetrated, that there's other great ways to get calcium, and that calcium is being oversold. If you take the most viable nutritional study that's ever been conducted, the Great China Study, which has been ongoing since 1983, and that particular study is remarkable. It's looked at just tens of thousands of people, both in the United States and China, and that particular study points out that there's 1/5 the amount of osteoporosis when you compare the Chinese population versus the American population, and they've had like 1/5 the amount of calcium in dairy. So they have significantly less osteoporosis, and they have significantly less dairy in the diet. So
that's interesting.
So
okay, well, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you so much for calling. Please, appreciate it. Bye-bye. All right, once again, in Boston and New England, 617-822-1969. Verizon Wireless users free call. Just dial pound 96.9. So I want to just take a minute or two to kind of bring it back home here. We talked at the outset of the broadcast about something that I think is really noteworthy, which are the superbug problems that we're about to, I think, contend with. We have already contended with superbugs to some extent already, and there's a lot more to come, unfortunately. But, it begins with the warning that came from the Nobel Prize-winning Scottish biologist Alexander Fleming, who discovered antibiotics in 1928 when he warned against their overuse. And here we are 80 years later after Fleming's warnings. We currently spend over $10 billion annually in antibiotics in this country. So have we taken his caution to heart? We have not. We I think, are certainly more respectful about some of the reckless implementation of antibiotics than we used to be, but we're still far from being responsible with our use of antibiotics. Unfortunately, the super strains are here. They're here to stay, and overuse has a great deal to do with it. As I said earlier, we're talking about strains such as the NDM1 bacterial strain. But again, I think that we point out that NDM1 bacteria is a real frightening prospect. The World Health Organization has now declared NDM1 a worldwide threat, and it comes back each year with a greater vengeance. Yet, in 2009, the University of Sydney researchers reported that even when diluted to 1/10 the concentration, Manuka honey, M-A-N-U-K-A, Manuka honey killed NDM1 bacteria effectively. So, there are some remarkable natural medicines here that I think we need to spend more time taking a real hard look at. Manuka is a wild bush honey that's found in Australia and New Zealand. It's available in the health food stores and the highways and byways of the United States and the rest of the world, and thank God for it, because Manuka, M-A-N-U-K-A, Manuka wild bush honey produces hydrogen peroxide in the body. It's a natural byproduct of Manuka honey. The other reasons that researchers have given for it being such an effective natural superbug antibiotic is it has 800 methylglyoxal agents in it. 800 of these powerful agents that annihilate the immune system of the bacterias. So it destroys their protein and is a remarkable natural medicine. In 1/10 the concentration, it was quite effective in that particular study. So, and again, it produces hydrogen peroxide, and that helps alkalize. It's a pretty remarkable study that was done in 2009 at the University of Sydney, and so indeed is Manuka honey. Hey, there are some remarkable natural solutions to superbugs right over the counter at your natural health food store. We're going to talk about those just as soon as we come back from this series of messages, I should say. Stay right where you are. Stay right where you are.
Now back to the Natural Health Show, sponsored by Good Health Natural Foods in Quincy and Hanover.
And now, as advertised, we're going to have a pleasurable conversation with a very special person. Bernie Siegel, welcome.
Thank you, Mark.
It's great to have you on board. How are you?
I'm laughing because I always tell people not to ask me that. But one of the
All right,
things,
now how aren't you?
I tell people, and when you share your wounds, people share things with you. So I often will say, I'm depressed, out of my antidepressant, and my doctor's away on vacation. And then people, as my wife said to me one day, you think it's a joke, they don't. 80% of the people literally offer you their antidepressants. Even clerks at, supermarkets will say, I'll get relief, take it in my locker. And so I tell people, either use that or put a bandage over your eye, and then see how the world reacts to you because you have a visible wound. That's
beautiful. Only spoken through your beautiful lips, too, because we hear such opposite information, unfortunately, in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Hey, there's an upcoming event that you want to chat about just for a second here, too. I think folks need to know about it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
I'll be speaking up in, where am I? In Marlborough, Massachusetts in the evening, and it's about... The topic is our new book, Book of Miracles. That's the title. And it isn't just medical. It's about incredible things that happen to people, how our consciousness and our choices affect the future. And some are things you can't explain, are totally mystical, but others you could say, oh, well, that's a coincidence. But I don't think these coincidences would happen unless people lived in a certain way. So it's the evening of, December 1st in Marlborough, Mass., yeah.
Which is a Thursday night. That's December 1st in Marlborough, Mass. If folks are interested in hearing Bernie, of course, you surely should be if you're not presently planning on getting up there. Contact Candida at 781-834-2728. So talk about the book a little bit. It's a really beautiful title. I'm sure that it's something that is going to be very inspirational for most of our folks.
Well, to me, life is a miracle, and I think to Einstein also. When you look at what's built into us, I often say that if you cut your finger, you don't die of an infection or bleed to death. So as a surgeon, I could operate on people, and I didn't have to tell them how to heal their wound. So those mechanisms are built into us. But the way I summarize it is when you love your life and love your body, then your body gets that message. See, the opposite is Monday morning. We have more heart attacks, strokes, suicides, and illnesses, which is not a coincidence based on how people feel on Monday. But if you learn, for instance, you have a life-threatening illness and then turn your life around and don't do the things that were killing you and start doing what you love, I have letters that end with, I didn't die, now I'm so busy I'm killing myself. Help, where do I go from here? So, Solzhenitsyn used the term self-induced healing. I mean, this is something I think of very often, that so many people in our support groups will say, oh, I saw the doctor today, and the doctor said, you're doing very well, whatever you're doing, keep it up. Now, why didn't the doctor say, you're doing very well, what is it you're doing? I'd like to tell the other patients. Because that was the thing I learned, that everybody who did well had a story, something going on in their life. And Solzhenitsyn doesn't talk about miracles or spontaneous remissions in his book Cancer Ward. He talks about self-induced healing. And the symbol he uses in the book is a rainbow-colored butterfly. And the rainbow is literally your life in order, and the butterfly transformation. So, I felt intuitively, because he'd had cancer, he knew the secret. Get your life in order, transform, be reborn, whatever words you want to use. But when people do those things, and it's not just people, I mean, I laugh because people get mad at me when I say God loves bacteria. Why? They can cause trouble. Yeah, but bacteria become resistant to antibiotics by altering their genetic makeup. And viruses, resist the vaccine. So the survival mechanisms are built into us, but we have to turn them on, what's called epigenetics. You have to give your genes the signal. It isn't their fault. Or why didn't they do something, or why did I get sick? It's look at your life, what's going on in your body, what's your internal chemistry, and then the potential. So I'd say miracles are everybody's potential. But a lot of people are afraid, what if I don't have a miracle? What if I don't heal? Then I did it wrong, and I'll feel worse. And, so much of it is how we're brought up, all the messages we heard from our parents. If you grow up with love, you're not afraid of the challenge. And if not, then you're afraid to do everything wrong.
It's like we were talking before we went on the air about the movie The Matrix with Bruce Lipton, and how they talk about 1/3 of all healing is mental.
Yeah.
And they've confirmed that now scientifically. And it's kind of like the idea that there's a new speak of limbic reformatting, the idea of just completely changing our mind totally from the mind we grew up with.
Yeah, 25 years ago, as I was just mentioning this to someone, I was on Oprah. Why? I mean, I thought she invited me because she liked what I had to say. I think she did. Yep. But she always had some other doctors there she didn't tell me about to blame me, and criticize me. You're blaming your patients. How could your life have anything to do with it? I talked about loneliness, retirement, affecting health, and recited a poem, and doctor yells at me because it rhymes doesn't make it true. But you see, now we have studies on the benefits of laughter, the negative effects of loneliness on immune function, and all of these things have become scientific. So I'm not crazy anymore, and you don't get invited back, on all the talk shows, because now people are agreeing. And doctors even who have gotten sick will put in their book, I want to apologize for what I used to think of, Dr. Siegel, because now he's a big help. And one thing, let me add this while people are listening about the mind that impressed me. This had to do with a mistake that was done at a hospital where they repaired their radiation therapy machine, and a month later when they did the routine inspection, found no radioactive material had been put back in it. But I said to the radiation therapist, who was very upset when he learned this, that I said, you'd have to be an idiot to not know you weren't treating people. He said, what do you mean? I said, you obviously had people with side effects and shrinking tumors, or you would have known the machine wasn't working. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me, and his eyes bulged, and he said, oh, my God, you're right. That's the power of the mind, and why I try to, make sure that people have their intellect and their intuitive wisdom, the unconscious, agreeing with each other. So when they make a choice about their life or treatment or anything else, if the two agree, you have far fewer side effects because you're going in with your body at peace, knowing this is the right choice. But if you're in conflict, if your head says, I need to go have an operation or chemotherapy,
Right.
and the intuition says it's not the right thing for you, there's trouble. And let me conclude with saying that there are people who don't want treatments and draw beautiful pictures or have dreams that say, yes, go get it. And I always encourage them to listen to the wisdom that is coming from their internal source more than what's coming out of their head.
Well, speaking of which, I remember back in the mid-1980s, I had the great pleasure of going to one of your presentations. I think it was in Braintree, Mass.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you did a slideshow and you showed a lot of the drawings that terminally ill children put forth, and they were just amazingly telling, just incredible photos.
Oh, I haven't stopped showing that because literally the drawings show we know the future. I have drawings by children sitting in the waiting room who draw a picture of the operating room that they've never been in. And also they draw anatomy, and these are not people who know anatomy, but they let me know what's going on in their body through it. And it isn't just, some of it is symbolic. Like I have a drawing by a lady of a boat, a sailboat, but the sails look exactly like breasts and have nipple marks on them. And when you hold it up in front of a group and say, what is her problem? Yeah, everybody says breasts. And so I show several of these because people don't have to be experts or doctors to know what anatomy is appearing on, the screen. And then it impresses them. And I tell them, listen to your dreams. If you have a dream one night that says there's something wrong, that's one of the stories in the book. A woman has a dream. A doctor comes up, Oriental, points to her right breast and says there's a cancer there. When she woke up, she feels a lump, and it turned out to be cancer. At the hospital, who walks into her room? That same doctor that was in her dream and says, this is where the cancer is. But
Incredible.
You'd say, how do those things happen? Yeah.
Well, because we are incredible, we're exceptional, and we're just not. We're not programmed for exceptionalism. I think
right.
We awaken to it, or something like that.
Yeah, that's why I love the word potential. That that people shouldn't be afraid to take responsibility and participate, and not just be a submissive patient, who's trying to please everybody else, but to enter into it. But I sent out 100 letters to people with cancer back in 1978, inviting them to live a longer, better life through support groups and things I had learned. Mm-hmm. I expected hundreds of people to show up because I grew up with a loving family and expected everybody else did. And less than a dozen women showed up. It blew my mind.
Wow.
And that's why the term exceptional came. My wife said, they're exceptional, so they became exceptional cancer patients. Yeah, and then people said, well, I'm not exceptional, so I can't come to the meeting. Or even, just we talked about drawings. I had a woman come in with cancer, asked her to do a drawing. She came back with a drawing. At the bottom it says, I have my 10-year-old son do this because I'm not good at drawing. Now, I'm trying to help you survive cancer, and you're worried about the grade you're going to get on a drawing. And that's the sad part.
Well, what about the healing power of expectancy?
Yeah, I got criticized for that, too. You're giving false hope. I said, what is false hope? It's an oxymoron.
Those words don't go together.
Yeah, it's not about statistics. Somebody won the Connecticut lottery, the Powerball, $254 million the other day. You see, and yet one of my grandsons was saying to me, Grandpa, you shouldn't waste your money on lottery. But somebody won, you see. So I let people know you're not a statistic. What you're capable of. You want to reach out. You want to see. And if they participate, then, we share with them the wisdom of others, what I call survival behavior.
I had a conversation with my son before we went on the air tonight, and he mentioned that he'd heard a great interview among scientists yesterday, and he said that only one of them was a physicist. And he said the physicist was, of course, in all of his observations and all of the analysis that he gave was more expansionistic and
right.
limitless possibility. And he said the scientists were struggling with that. They had such a hard time with it.
That's something I say to people. I have an easier time talking to astronomers and quantum physicists because they are used to the uncertainty, but yet the wisdom behind it, and creation. And this is a quote from Fred Alan Wolf, a quantum physicist. He said, "Desire and intention alter the physical world, causing things to occur which would not normally occur if they were not desired." Now, you say that to a doctor, and you'll probably get into an argument, you're giving false hope. How could desire and intention? But something happens. Consciousness is non-local. That's something else I've learned. I mean, I've learned how to communicate with animals through an animal intuitive who told me where to find a cat. We live in the woods. This cat was missing for weeks. I'm sure it's dead. I got an email one night saying, "It's alive. I can see through her eyes." Described the whole house and everything else, and I picked up the cat the next morning. And her name is Amelia Kincaid, and she's written books, too, about it. But, again, I thought that was nuts. I mean, I really did. I mean, how can you talk to animals? Come on. But once she described in detail the house and other pets and a whole host of things that were amazing, I mean, I can't deny it. So my reaction to her, became a foreword to one of her books because I said, I cannot deny what I experienced with her. And then she taught me how to do the same thing. And for everybody listening, the key, and it's not just in talking to animals, but in your life, is quieting your mind. The symbolism of the still pond, that's when you know you're a swan, even though your mother threw you out of the house as an ugly duckling. That's when you know you're a tiger who was brought up by goats and then sees his reflection. But if there's turbulence in your life, you never see anything because the water, the mirror isn't there. There's no reflection.
Beautiful. So, Bernie, you'll be December 1st talking about the Book of Miracles.
Yes, and more,
And much more, of course.
I
But
always
that book is available, I trust, in the marketplace.
Yes, it's in, and my website, by the way, is Bernie Siegel, SIEGELMD.com. And there are a lot of articles people can read, communicate with me, and purchase books and other things.
And once again, if you'd like to hear Bernie speak, of course, you surely would. December 1st, and you want to contact Candida at 781-834-2728. Dr. Bernie Siegel, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure, Mark.
Thank
really
you so
is.
much. Thank you. I look forward to getting out there myself. I look forward to getting out there myself. I look forward to...
Now, back to the Natural Health Show, sponsored by Good Health Natural Foods in Quincy and Hanover.
All right, we're going to bring it on home now. We have talked earlier before Bernie came on about superbugs and natural medicines that fight them. And, of course, this is an ongoing issue. The World Health Organization has declared the antibiotic-resistant superbugs a worldwide threat. And 52% of all staph bacteria samples currently collected in the U.S. are now antibiotic-resistant, compared, by the way, to only 1% in Sweden. So this is pretty remarkable stuff. But we want to make sure that you get clear indications here as to what your options are in terms of making it through this particular winter. Well supported, at least from the perspective of natural medicine, in April of 2011, Portuguese researchers from the University of Beira reported that coriander oil at 1.6% solution was effective at killing 12 lethal strains of bacteria, including E. coli, Salmonella, MRSA, which is, of course, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. The powerful antibiotic methicillin could not kill the superstaph, but the coriander oil did. That's an important point. Number two, we've talked many times here on the Natural Health Show about oregano oil. Oregano oil basically has been studied at Georgetown Medical University for quite some time by Dr. Harry Preuss. And there's an antioxidant terpene called carvacrol found in oregano oil that killed staph E. coli as effectively as penicillin, streptomycin, vancomycin without side effects. More importantly, superbugs cannot develop resistance to the carvacrol in the oregano oil. We've talked about Manuka honey. Manuka honey in 2009, the University of Sydney researchers reported that even when diluted to 1/10 of a concentration, Manuka honey killed the NDM1 strain of bacteria. And that, of course, is the New Delhi metallo-beta-lactamase 1, or the NDM1, which you're going to hear more and more about, unfortunately. Also, in 2008, the University of East London researcher Dr. Ronald Cutler performed human studies and found that stabilized allicin from garlic cured 100% of the 52 patients that were infected with MRSA in his particular study. So we want to make sure you get the message on that as well. University of Texas researchers are currently developing new air filter technology that they say filters out 99.97% of all bacteria. The reason, they've placed a colloidal silver bond inside that filtration system. So they're using colloidal silver at the University of Texas as we speak in their new air filter technology research, and they're filtering out 99.97% of all bacteria because of the colloidal silver in the air filter. That will come to marketplace, I'm sure, very soon. The reason for colloidal silver, of course, colloidal silver's ionic nanoparticles have been found to suppress germ cell nutrient transport. Colloidal silver has also been found to attach to the cell membranes of germs, interfering with their specific cell division as well. So here's what I'm going to recommend. I'm going to recommend a couple different things here to make it through this winter. There's a company called Physicians Strength, and I know Good Health is the Good Health in Hanover is about to get it in, but Physicians Strength is a brand of coriander oil that will be on the shelves at Good Health Natural Foods. I know that you can purchase it through the internet as well. Also, there is North American Herb and Spice Company, North American Herb and Spice Oregano Oil, which is the blue label that you find on the shelves, of course. In terms of Manuka honey, a really important point here is there's a 16 plus and a 20 plus. It sort of measures the potency of the Manuka honey. And again, this is a superbug killer that's been well researched at the University of Sydney. And researched in that research, rather, it was found that when diluted to 1/10 of a concentration, it was able to kill the NDM1 strain of bacteria. So the companies that I recommend are Wedder, W-E-D-D-E-R, Wedder, and Mossop, M-O-S-S-O-P. The Wedder spoon, W-E-D-D-E-R, Wedder spoon, not Weatherspoon, but Wedder spoon, W-E-D-D-E-R-S-P-O-O-N, is a 16 plus Manuka honey. That's as strong as you really need. There is a stronger one, however. The Mossop, M-O-S-S-O-P, is a 20 plus. Both of those perfectly capable of keeping your immune system nice and strong through the winter months. Doesn't take much of this as well. Remember that 1/10 concentrated dilution is pretty much indicative. It doesn't take an awful lot of this stuff to really make a big difference. So I always tell people 1/3 of a teaspoon a day in your herb tea or whatever, more than enough to get the job done. Also, in terms of the allicin that we talked about, again, 2008 University of East London researcher Dr. Ronald Cutler performing the human studies that found that the stabilized version of allicin from garlic, curing 100% of the 52 patients with MRSA infections in his particular research. I recommend enzymatic therapy garlinase, which is 320 milligrams of garlicin or garlic concentrate, but it provides about 5,000 micrograms of stabilized allicin. That's the key. So that's enzymatic therapy, garlinase. And finally, last but not least, the Ionic brand colloidal silver, which is 100 parts per million. There's a number of different measurements in terms of the potency or strength of colloidal gold or colloidal silver both. And the one that I recommend, of course, is the Ionic colloidal silver that is 100 parts per million. That's I-O-N-I-C, Ionic. So the other thing I want to mention is if anybody loses track of all this fast stream of information regarding how to build your immunity up and to provide yourself with some superbug protection, then you can certainly go on our website. It's www.maxhealing. It's just one word, maxhealing.com, maxhealing.com. And we usually have the broadcasts of these programs dumped on our website, and thanks to 96.9 Boston Talks, because they actually have their podcast of stuff, and they forward the attachment, and we're going to shoot it over to you guys through our website. So get on our website at maxhealing.com and check it out. Also, don't forget this coming Thursday, I'll be doing a segment on Fox 25 Morning Show at 8:50 in the morning. A lot of folks have not noted that time change. I was on earlier prior. So the time slots for my Living Well segment on Fox 25 are now at 8:50 on a Thursday morning, so you can check that out this coming Thursday. I won't tell you what the topic is, but it'll be a very interesting topic, I promise you that. And once again, I think the most important message here is there are viable ways to build up immunity from a safe, natural perspective without side effects that enable us to at least complete the task of neutralizing the presence of what Bernie just talked about a little while ago, these genetic monsters that we're now contending with. The one thing that I probably should mention at this point as well is there's a product I often recommend through the winter months. A lot of folks have heard me talk about Monolaurin, M-O-N-O-L-A-U-R-I-N, available at Good Health Natural Foods and most of the health food stores. Monolaurin was researched in 1982 at the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta by Dr. John Kabara. It's nothing more than lauric acid from coconut oil, but it's a very effective antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral, And again, it's been shown in research at the Center for Disease Control to kill Listeria, Staph aureus, strep A, F, and G, both gram-positive and gram-negative. So there's been some remarkable research in that particular area. And again, that's monolaurin, which is, again, nothing more than a fatty acid from coconut called lauric acid, Lauric. Those are 600 milligram capsules. And I usually recommend that you, to prevent, take 1 or 2 each day of the winter months. And winter is officially here, folks, even though it's not, it is. So I say get started with that stuff right away. It's dark out there, it's cold out there, and the bugs are flying. So good time to start with your prevention routines. In the event that you feel that it's already been, you've already been invaded by some of these things and you're starting to sneeze and cough and feel a little bit beaten up, you might want to think about increasing the dose on your monolaurin to 3, 4, even 5 a day, so you can easily increase the dosage on those. Again, it's a safe supplement because it's a food-grade supplement from coconut, but it's really requires a higher dosing in order to be effective if you're really up against a nasty virus or a bacteria. So again, I'll just really quickly recap that. We're talking about coriander oil, a company called Physicians Strength Coriander Oil in a tincture form. We talked about Wedderspoon, W-E-D-D-E-R spoon, or Mossip Manuka honey. We talked about North American Herbs and Spices oregano oil. We talked about enzymatic therapy Garlanase, which has the stabilized allicin 5,000 micrograms. And we talked about ionic colloidal silver drops. We talked about 100 ppms. 100 ppms is a pretty stable dose. So we are at that time. We got it all done somehow, some way. I don't know how we did it, but we did it. And we want to certainly thank Mike Roberts for helping us to do it, because without his help, we wouldn't be able to pull this gig off. So thanks to Mike Roberts, great producer. And thanks to Adam Ing, of course, the webcast, the meister of webcast and all such things. And thanks to Candida. And thanks to Dr. Bernie Siegel for coming on board. Great to have him on board. Don't forget his presentation December 1st. You want to call Candida, 781-834-2728. And, of course, you want to stay tuned to Right Turn Radio with Woody and Abby. Always, always a great program. Until next Sunday, this is Mark Mincola reminding you, please, be wise, be aware, be well. Make it a healthy week. Good night. Healthy week.